Welcome to Argentarius Reads, my podcast series where I read public domain stories to you. Along the way, I may comment on the work as I read it. You can find free episodes of Argentarius Reads on YouTube and most podcast apps. Exclusive episodes can be found on my Patreon, link in the description. On Patreon, you can either purchase the episodes or become a member. Patreon members also get additional perks depending on the tier. Wherever you are listening from, I hope you enjoy the story. Alright, on to part 2. A week had passed since they had made acquaintance. It was a holiday. It was sultry indoors, while in the street the wind whirled the dust round and round, and blew people's hats off. It was a thirsty day, and Gurov often went into the pavilion and pressed Anna to have syrup and water or an ice. One did not know what to do with oneself. In the evening, when the wind had dropped a little, they went out on the groin, and groin here means a low wall or sturdy barrier built out into the sea from a beach to check erosion and drifting. So they went out onto the groin to see the steamer come in. And I'm assuming steamer means a ship, a steamship, yes. Or could be a locomotive. So it's either a ship or a locomotive. There were a great many people walking about the harbor. They had gathered to welcome someone, bringing bouquets, and two peculiarities of a well-dressed yacht crowd were very conspicuous, standing out as to be clearly visible. Okay, very conspicuous. The elderly ladies were dressed like young ones, and there were great numbers of generals. Owing to the roughness of the sea, okay, so it's a boat, the steamer arrived late, after the sun had set, and it was a long time turning about before it reached the groin. Anna looked through her lorgnette, pair of opera glasses. So Anna looked through her lorgnette at the steamer and the passengers as though looking for acquaintances. And when she turned to Gurov, her eyes were shining. She talked a great deal and asked disconnected questions, forgetting next moment when she had asked. And then she dropped her lorgnette in the crush. What do they mean by crush? Using it as a noun. The festive crowd began to disperse. It was too dark to see people's faces. The wind had completely dropped, but Gurov and Anna still stood as though waiting to see someone else come from the steamer. Anna was silent now and sniffed the flowers without looking at Gurov. "The weather is better this evening," he said. "Where shall we go now? Shall we dive somewhere? Shall we drive somewhere?" I'm thinking diving into the sea. She made no answer. He looked at her intently, and all at once put his arm around her and kissed her on the lips, and breathed in the moisture and the fragrance of the flowers, and he immediately looked round him, anxiously wondering whether anyone had seen them. "Let us go to your hotel," he said softly, and both walked quickly. The room was close and smelt of the scent she had bought at the Japanese shop. Gurov looked at her and thought, what different people one meets in the world. From the past, he preserved memories of careless, good-natured women who loved cheerfully and were grateful to him for the happiness he gave them, however brief it might be, and of women like his wife who loved without any genuine feeling, with superfluous phrases, affectedly, hysterically, with an expression that suggested that it was not love nor passion, but something more significant, and of 2 or 3 others, very beautiful, cold women, on whose faces he had caught a glimpse of a rapturous, aggressively greedy expression, an obstinate desire to snatch from life more than it could give. And these were capricious capricious, unreflecting, domineering, unintelligent women, not in their first youth. And when Gurov grew cold to them, their beauty excited his hatred, and the lace on their linen seemed to him like scales. Whew. Okay, learning some new vocabulary here, and also learning just how much Gurov does not like women. Well, not really. He likes the chase, for sure, but do not approve. But in this case, there was still the difference, the angularity of an experienced youth, an awkward feeling, and there was a sense of consternation as though someone had suddenly knocked at the door, an attitude of Anna, the lady with the dog, to what had happened was somehow peculiar, very grave, as though it were her fall. So it seemed, and it was strange and inappropriate. Her face dropped and faded, and on both sides of it her long hair hung down mournfully. She mused in a dejected attitude like, quote, the woman who was a sinner in an old-fashioned picture. It's wrong, she said. You will be the first to despise me now. There was a watermelon on the table. Gurov cut himself a slice and began eating it without haste. There followed at least half an hour of silence. Anna was touching. There was about her the purity of a good, simple woman who had seen little of life. The solitary candle burning on the table threw a faint light on her face, yet it was clear that she was very unhappy. How could I despise you? Asked Gurov. You don't know what you are saying. God forgive me, she said, and her eyes filled with tears. It's awful. You seem to feel you need to be forgiven. Forgiven? No. I am a bad, low woman. I despise myself. I don't attempt to justify myself. It's not my husband, but myself I have deceived. And not only just now. I have been deceiving myself for a long time. My husband may be a good, honest man, but he is a flunky. Flunky, a manservant, a footman, steward, butler, lackey. I don't know what he does there, what his work is, but I know he is a flunky. I was 20 when I was married to him. I have been tormented by curiosity. I wanted something better. There must be a different sort of life, I said to myself. I wanted to live, to live, to live. I was fired, but by curiosity. You don't understand it, but I swear to God, I could not control myself. Something happened to me. I could not be restrained. I told my husband I was ill, and came here. And here I have been walking about, as though I were dazed, like a mad creature. And now I've become a vulgar, contemptible woman, whom anyone may despise. I may have to look up the time period when this was written, because I suspect that this is a fair bit into our past, and, you know, a woman kind of living on her own is very unusual during that time period, more than likely. Gurov felt bored already, listening to her. He was irritated by a naive tone, by his remorse, so unexpected and inopportune, but for the tears in her eyes. He might have thought she was jesting or playing a part. I don't understand, he said softly. What is it you want? She hid her face on his breast and pressed close to him. Believe me, I beseech you, she said. I love a pure, honest life, and sin is loathsome to me. I don't know what I am doing. Simple people say, the evil one has beguiled me. And I may say of myself now that the evil one has beguiled me. Hush, hush, he muttered. He looked at her fixed, scared eyes, kissed her, talked softly and affectionately, and by degrees as he comforted, and her gaiety I believe this is, yes, gaiety. State or quality of being lighthearted or cheerful. That's the old version of the word. This one's even spelt with a G-A-I-E-T-Y instead of a Y. And her gaiety returned. They both began laughing. Afterwards, when they went out, there was not a soul on the seafront. The town was in cypresses, with its cypresses, had quite a death-like air, but the sea still broke noisily on the shore. A single barge was rocking on the waves, and a lantern was blinking sleepily on it. They found a cab and drove to Orianda. I found out your surname in the hall just now. It was written on the board. That looks like detritus, but it's not. Dedarits. There we go. Von Dedarits, said Gurov. Is your husband a German? No. I believe his grandfather was a German, but he is an Orthodox Russian himself. At Orianda, they sat on a seat not far from the church, looked down at the sea, and were silent. The Alta was hardly visible through the morning mist. White clouds stood motionless in the mountain tops. The leaves did not stir on the trees. Grasshoppers chirruped, and the monotonous hollow sound of the sea rising up from below spoke of the peace, of the eternal sleep awaiting us. Kind of mellow visuals there, tone setting there. So it must have sounded when there was no Yalta, no Orianda here. So it sounds now. And it will sound as indifferently and monotonously when we are all no more. And in this constancy, in this complete indifference to the life and death of each of us, there lies hid perhaps a pledge of our eternal salvation, of the unceasing movement of life upon earth, of unceasing progress towards perfection. Sitting beside a young woman who was in the dawn seemed so lovely, soothed and spellbound in these magical surroundings, the sea, mountains, clouds, the open sky. Gurov thought how in reality everything is beautiful in this world when one reflects. Everything except what we think or do ourselves when we forget our human dignity and the higher aims of our existence. A man walked up to them, probably a keeper, looked at them and walked away. In this detail seemed mysterious and beautiful too. They saw a steamer come from Theodosia, with its lights out in the glow of dawn. There is dew on the grass, said Anna after a silence. Yes, it's time to go home. They went back to the town. Then they met every day at 12 o'clock on the seafront, lunched and dined together, went for walks, admired the sea. She complained that she slept badly, that her heart throbbed violently, asked the same questions, troubled now by jealousy and now by the fear that he did not respect her sufficiently. And often in the square or gardens, when there was no one near them, he suddenly drew her to him and kissed her passionately. Complete idleness, these kisses in broad daylight, while he looked around in dread of someone seeing them. The heat, the smell of the sea, the continual passing to and fro before him of idle, well-dressed, well-fed people made a new man of him. So he's getting his thrills while she's kind of spiraling. He told Anna how beautiful she was, how fascinating. He was impatiently passionate. He would not move a step away from her while she was often pensive and continually urged him to confess that he did not respect her, did not love her in the least, and thought of her as nothing but a common woman. Rather late, almost every evening, they drove somewhere out of town to Orianda or to the waterfall. Near a waterfall is hard to hear. And the expedition was always a success. The scenery invariably impressed them as grand and beautiful. They were expecting her husband to come, but a letter came from him saying that there was something wrong with his eyes, and he entreated his wife to come home as quickly as possible. Let's see. Entreated. Ask someone earnestly or anxiously. Okay, so it's like beckoning. Anna made haste to go. It's a good thing I'm going away, she said to Gurov. It's the finger of destiny. She went by coach, and he went with her. Oh, interesting. Is he going to meet the husband? He also has a wife. I also wonder if this may also be a time period where divorce wasn't really a thing, or it was very, very rare. They were driving the whole day when she had got into a compartment of the express, and when the second bell had rung, she said, "Let me look at you once more. Look at you once again, that's right." She did not shed tears, but was so sad that she seemed ill and her face was quivering. "I shall remember you, think of you," she said. "God be with you, be happy. Don't remember evil against me. We are parting forever, it must be so, for we ought never to have met. Well, God be with you." Oh, okay. So he probably went with her to the coach, or at least up a ways, before parting. The train moved off rapidly. Its lights soon vanished from sight, and a minute later there was no sound of it, as though everything had conspired together to end as quickly as possible. That sweet delirium, that madness, left alone on the platform, and gazing into the dark distance, Gurov listened to the chirrup of the grasshoppers and the hum of the telegraph wires, feeling as though he had only just waked up. And he thought, musing, that there had been another episode or adventure of his life, and it too was at an end, and nothing was left of it but a memory. He was moved, sad, and conscious of a slight remorse. This young woman, whom he would never meet again, had not been happy with him. He was genuinely warm and affectionate with her, but yet in his manner, his tone, and his caresses, there had been a shade of light irony, the coarse condescension of a happy man who was, besides, almost twice her age. Whoa. All the time she had called him kind, exceptional, lofty. Obviously he had seemed to her different from what he really was, so he had unintentionally deceived her. Here at the station was already a scent of autumn. It was a cold evening. "It's time for me to go north," thought Gurov as he left the platform. High time. Leaving Yalta. Interesting. Okay, so I looked it up, and Anton Chekhov lived from 1860 to 1904. So that puts us roundabouts in the time period where this book was published or first written. So that gives us some hints. Anyway, that's the end of part 2.